what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this week's episode of the Chair Guys podcast. I'm here with none other than,
Boris Vaughan.
and our special guest of the week is going to be
Alex, what's up?
Alex, ladies and gentlemen. So, we don't like to play around here on the Chair Guys podcast. So, why don't we just get into it?
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Alex, introduce yourself a little bit.
Oh yes, yeah, that's true. I
Yeah.
get ahead of myself sometimes.
Get ahead of yourself.
He's just a great. He's just a great.
Twitter aficionado, random kid from the six. I'm like
From
Drake's
the-
son.
The six.
Ooh, from the six. Shout out the six. I've never been to Toronto. Always wanted to go. You know what I'm saying?
Alright, you gotta pull up.
Yeah, I'm a pull up. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time we start with our album of the week. And
New
fortunately,
release.
new release. It's gonna be our new release.
this week.
New music.
And the album that we're gonna be discussing is Boris W, ladies and gentlemen.
Up to you.
And as in fashion of the Chair Guys, I think I'm gonna give the first, the new release. I'm gonna give it to Vaughn. Vaughn, what the fuck are you doing?
W.
No,
Boris,
you need to.
Boris.
What are you
Chill out.
doing, bro? You need to stop throwing up West Coast, bro. You're gonna get yourself clowned on, bro. All right, discuss
Okay,
Boris. What's up with it?
Boris is a band that I love. They're legendary band. And I went into this album just thinking like, I love Boris. They don't have anything to prove at this point in their careers. They can put out whatever they want. I wasn't expecting anything new or groundbreaking or a new direction from them. But I did get kind of a new direction from them. It was an interesting listen for sure. They kind of went in a more like, I would say droney direction, but they are like already kind of like drone metal usually, but like it is different on this album. It's more ambient, it's like a little lighter, not as heavy most of the time, but it's an interesting album. I really loved the first track. I thought that was a great opener. I was kind of like the atmosphere is very like potent, like there's like this, it's kind of like an ominous feeling like creeping up, and then the way it ends, it just kind of like ends. Like it's like I'm engaged and enthralled in the atmosphere, and then it just like stops abruptly, and I love that. Past that, the second track is kind of like it was like kind of another left turn. Like there was like it kind of reminded me like a Bjork or something. Like there was like some electronic elements and weird vocals, and then it just kind of kept going with this like weird atmosphere. And I gotta say like, this album really kind of lost me like pretty quickly after those first few tracks. I think it's an interesting new direction, but for me it's kind of more of a failed experiment than something that's like worth talking about a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce
It was
off
a
you on
weird
that.
album.
Yeah, I definitely agree that like the first four tracks I honestly really enjoyed. I mean, I'm not the biggest Boris fan, but I have heard a good amount from them because I do actually like their output. I'm just not like a crazy fan who's gonna
Yeah.
listen to everything. Um, but for the most part, like yeah, I definitely do agree. The first track is just awesome. Like it's really cool,
Mhm.
really interesting. I don't know if they've ever done like a dream pop kind of something like
I
that
think
of
they
sorts.
have done
but
it
They
not,
probably
before.
yeah,
not
they
exactly
probably
like
have,
that.
but maybe not like this. And then I think the second track is probably I really like that one a lot. I think like this album is just so I love the word ethereal when describing this
Yeah,
album. It's very icy, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's
Um
definitely ice.
and that album and the album cover too is just so interesting cuz it looks like so wet, it's I don't know,
What do you
it's
think about
it
it's
is.
it's
the
The
it's
album
a
cover
painting.
definitely
It's actually
captures
a
the energy.
yeah, the
It's
album
like a
cover is
water,
a
yeah.
painting.
I want to say
And so I thought
watercolor. It's like an oil
that was
painting.
interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's like an oil
You
painting.
can see like
Oh, it's
the
very
strokes on the reflections. I like that.
exactly. And actually, crazy thing, the last time they dropped an album that wasn't like an archive or a live release was in 2020. Doesn't that feel crazy? Like,
Really?
yeah,
Boris and
when I was
Yeah,
Vaughan
sitting,
came
because
out in
I know they
October.
dropped so much, so
yeah,
like that's kind of surprising.
well,
But
but the
Wait, that
issue,
was
yeah,
2020? Oh my
it
god.
was
I thought that was
2020.
last
It
year.
was with the Boris Merzbow collab,
Yeah, I thought
and
that was last year.
I was so like taken aback when I looked at it because I was
yeah,
like,
that feels like
wow.
last year.
Yeah, it doesn't. It
Fucking
feels like
so
months
hard.
ago. Like I can remember
Yeah.
exactly where I was when
Like
I was
I
listening to
remember
it.
getting that album fucking early, and I was like excited to listen to it. It was really good.
A lot of people got the album early. I mean, honestly, Boris kind of has a lot of botched drops. Like a lot of people got the album early.
But I don't think they really care
Um,
because it's not a matter of like first week sales or being leaked.
Yeah,
It's
it's
yeah,
like
not
no,
like
they're more about the
they don't
yeah.
music
care.
if anything, right?
Yeah, they
And
really love
if
the music, and
anything, like them getting their like, them selling the vinyls early and shit means that they're getting a lot of orders, right?
I think yeah, probably so. But
Yeah.
you see, that my issue is with, and I think me and Vaughn are gonna immediately agree. Like tracks like 6 through 8, like lose me. I'm a
Ooh.
bit lost. The first 4 tracks, 5 tracks, I'm entertained, and
Yeah.
then it just starts to go into a little bit more of the like whole drony thing and just kind of
It just kind
Yeah.
of yeah, it just
it,
kind of
it
gets lost
because
in
it
the
has that really nice icy feel, that very like dark and icy kind of feel to it in the first couple of tracks. But then it just starts to shift into drone, and we get less and less of that icy feel that the album has. And then my interest that was invested is just kind of lost. I'm
I don't
I'm I'm
know.
not feeling it half as
feel
much.
you.
In my opinion,
Let's hear
like,
what Alex.
yeah, I
Yeah,
still
Alex, what do you
believe
have to say,
that
bro? What do you
like
think?
that second half still has that kind of like icy vibe. Like Beyond Good and Evil is like basically kind of like a
Mhm.
ballad in a way. It's like very slow. But
Mm,
my critique about it isn't the fact that it like falls off halfway through, but rather that it's not necessarily like completely cohesive as a whole. Because when you listen to tracks like The Fallen, it's a bit louder in comparison to the rest, which isn't really an issue. But I feel like the whole album itself doesn't really have a strong identity you can tie it to, because it tries to be so
Yeah.
many things. Like even track 2, even though like I like that track a lot, it's still not really like in touch with the rest of the album, simply due to like kind of the more like, as you said, like electronic kind of like trip hop kind of vibes that I got from it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like no drone, no post rock. Like it's really like I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
that track
it's definitely
is.
Yeah.
drony, but it's a different type of drone than they usually do.
Yeah, it's not
And
that like heavy guitar like
Yeah,
sludge that it
and
drones
kind
are
of
something I
has.
wanted to
definitely kind of
touch on
different track a bit.
is not only the sound but the structure. I think is kind of what really hurts this album the most. The structure of the
Hmm.
songs, because usually when they do drone metal, like Feedbacker is I love Feedbacker. Flood is a good example. They they work in it's like a whole it's like a movie. It's like they're building up to a catharsis, and this
Mm.
album doesn't have that. So it feels like it's always building up to something that we never get.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like some tracks are just kind of some tracks are just kind of boring, but some tracks I feel like could have been good if they were like leading up to something, and then it's just like kind of it's just like it feels like there's too much build up to nothing, and that's why I think the first half of the album or so hits more than the second, because that's like it feels like it's building up and then it just never goes anywhere for
Yeah, it's
me.
like too much
And
Yeah.
tension. There's no resolve to it.
I I like the track The Fallen, because
Hmm.
that's the track that gets like noisier, and then I'm like, okay, this is like classic Boris, right? And then that track
Yeah.
goes nowhere either, and then it's just like, and that's where I kind of am like, okay, this is yeah, that's kind of the moment where I lose most of my interest in this album, is when The Fallen comes on, and I really like that first like minute of the song, and then it just kind of loses steam.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And it's like it's tracks like you will know that it's just like 9 minutes and we're given very little, and we're given kind of almost the same thing. Like yes, it has its progression, and yes, like it goes somewhere, but that somewhere is no like not comparative to the somewheres that other albums have under Boris's discography. Like
Oh.
Yeah,
like when people literally compare your album to like a tsunami hitting and like the movements of it all,
yeah,
like that says something. But with this, like reading reviews and such, just online, it's just like people are just saying like, yeah, there's a couple really good tracks on here, but nonetheless, like it just doesn't pale to what they have. And I get
Yeah.
it, that's really
Yeah. I
hard
would
because
agree.
they have some amazing albums under their belt, but I just think like yeah, no, most definitely tracks kind of it's just fall off. Like I can remember the first 4 tracks pretty well, but then like I said, 6 through 8, I'm just lost. Like I couldn't tell you what's going on there.
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say was that like I don't necessarily think songs really have to lead to like a big climax or anything. I don't really think that it necessarily has to progress for it to be like good.
Yeah.
For
But
sure.
that just
Yeah.
goes back to the idea again that I was having earlier of just like how this album doesn't really have its own identity and how none of the tracks really like interplay with each other, which is also like a fine thing on albums. But I feel like with a sound like this, it could do a lot more, and I like feel a bit
Really.
disappointed to a degree, but still like pretty good in my opinion. And
Yeah, no, exactly.
one
Like I still
critique
think
I kind of had
I
was, in my opinion, some of the vocals on tracks maybe like what's it called again? I think it was Drowning by Numbers. Like the
Yes.
kind of more like weirdish like Bjork style vocals. That's such a blanket term, but you get what I mean. Um, I don't necessarily think they really fit, which is not really a
Yeah.
bad thing in itself, but in my opinion, it kind of like takes away from the whole picture.
yeah.
Yeah, Drowning by Numbers in particular, I thought the vocals kind of ruined the song. Like I really liked the instrumental and the atmosphere
Yeah,
on
I
that
don't know
one,
if
but
he's on the vocals because
It's
I can't find the credits, but if it's
it's
without
actually
them, then I'm a bit
in
disappointed.
all honesty, it's like the opposite for me because there's a project by another Japanese like punk band called Gizan.
Oh,
Um
Gazan, yeah,
and
the yeah,
Yeah, Gazan. And those vocals sound so much like the vocals on like the Clue record that I really like from them. So I actually liked that number, the or Drowning by Numbers, simply just because I don't know, I just liked the vocals on it. So yeah, I didn't get the Bjork thing that you guys brought up. I got more so
well,
that, but that's because just I have
yeah,
prior
it's less
experience to it.
Bjork, but more of
it's
Yeah,
kind of
I
stretching
really the
chords a
second
bit
track
with
kind of
like
reminded me of Bjork because of
yeah,
the instrumentation. Like there's like some electronic drums that kind of reminded me
hmm
of like some homogenic
yeah,
stuff. So
maybe the Bjork thing is a bit
yeah.
silly statement, but
that's like
just
kind of a
granted
stretch,
that
I
but
haven't
some
I haven't
people
heard
like
Homogenic,
yeah,
but
it's a bit strange.
no, but I don't
yeah,
know. I really liked the vocals on this project. I actually think that's one of the more like bigger highlights of it.
I think
The
that's fine. Yeah,
I,
vocals.
it's like
I thought they were
the
kind of hit or
MC of them.
miss.
Yeah,
Really,
because
yeah.
my favorite
Um,
song is actually like in the second half. The one, it's
really,
Beyond Good and
what's your favorite
Evil.
song?
Beyond
The
Good and
Oh,
Evil.
Beyond
Beyond
Good
Good and
and
Evil
Evil.
is
Okay.
like basically just a ballad, like I said earlier, and I do
Yeah.
see reasons why you would see it as really good, like the vocals on their own, not on their own, but like in the whole picture of things, which makes a lot of sense to me. But personally, I just don't really think they belong on every song,
Yeah.
and yeah,
They seem to like that song too, 'cause like I'm looking on their website for like merch and like yeah, they have like a Beyond Good and Evil shirt. So I don't know, maybe they do really like that track. But nonetheless, I don't know. I I was like I said, let me preface, like I'm still not the biggest Boris fan in the world, but like when I definitely am in the mood for their music, like I really do enjoy it from time to time. But just like I don't know, just this project, if it was like tracks 1 through 4 like the entire way through, I would like this would probably be my favorite project of the year because those first 4 tracks are just like so powerful and I love them
Wow.
so much. Cause and this is to say that like I still think this is probably like my second favorite project of the year, even though we've just started. Um, because I still really like this. I think that like even per se a disappointing Boris project is still like a really good Boris project in all honesty. And I still think it's a really good project. I just think maybe with more time I'll come to appreciate the latter half of this album. But for the most part, no, I still think I need a little bit more time with it.
I was definitely less keen on it overall than you were. I mean, I think like um I don't know. I just think it was pretty lackluster overall. Like I really like the first track and I really like moments here and there on some other songs, but for the most part, it's just kind of boring for me. I don't really.
No, that's fair.
It was
And
kind of
yeah,
like
it's fair opinion.
I think
Not to
I
disagree.
love atmospheric and ambient type albums. Like I think they could have pulled it off. I think they don't have to use build-ups and stuff like you were saying, but I think for Boris that just works better because I think the sound in itself is not enough to engage me. Like it doesn't sound cool enough or beautiful enough to just do nothing and have no progression throughout the entire album.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
do feel
actually
like it
to
doesn't really.
address yeah, to address
Yeah.
the elephant in the room, the outro is just come on. Like what is that? Like
It's
the
I
outro
don't really,
is
I
I don't
didn't
mind too
mind it,
much. Yeah,
but
well no, but like it's
it's even
literally
its
just
motive.
the final chord progression of the previous track just coming to silence. Like that doesn't need to be its own track. You already made a 9-minute
I
track.
mean I don't care. I think
Yeah,
that was like
I,
I
I
I
think
think
it's
that
just
was
fine.
actually
Just hear
kind of
things
cool.
resonate and stuff. Just
I guess
maybe keep
that's
them
Wasn't
just me
that
separate.
because
invested at that point. So
I think that's just me because I really like Boris like closers, and that is just, like
mm,
one of the weakest closers I've heard from them.
I
In all
Well,
guess.
if you would
honesty.
like to like count it as a part of the other song, you can just have that whole song
Yeah,
be
I don't
Boris
Yeah,
really
that's true.
because
his
we
But
can
because
if
if
you
you
just
think of it
listen
like
without
that,
looking at the track list, then it's
yeah,
like
I'm just
yeah,
left scratching my head as to why they didn't just keep it like the extra minute and 25 seconds. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
I
I think
guess,
it's I think
yeah.
it because
it makes sense
I don't know
for
like
practicality, I
what
guess,
it
but
just leaves me confused. In all honesty, it leaves me confused. Um, but no, I think for the most part, this is still like a really good project, and I think that people should check it out because I think anyone who's looking to get into Boris perhaps like might want like a little bit more of an accessible kind of run through before they get into your kind of like feedback or like flood, I'd even say. I think this has some good tracks that can ease someone into it, you know.
Maybe, yeah.
yeah, I
But
guess, but it's not really like good as representative of their like
It's
whole
yeah,
sound.
because
no, it's
it
yeah,
doesn't
no, it's
really.
not. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
because
don't
I'm
think this
thinking
would be a
like
good gateway because it really
I feel
doesn't
like it would be
sound
like
like
a good
anything else
second or
they've
third
done.
album. Like that's where it lies,
Maybe,
in my
yeah.
opinion. Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least they're still keeping it up with like good album covers. Like I don't think Boris has like a bad
Oh,
album
that's
cover.
facts.
All
Yeah,
right, hunt for the
I think
bad
I
their
think
Boris
their
album
album
cover
cover.
their
scheme.
weakest cover is like the one like 2 years ago. But even then, it's still a good cover. Like
What? No.
the
Which one?
no, it's not called No. That like it's like two R
Oh,
O
the
I two
Bur-
P.
the
Oh,
Boris
the
Boris
Boris
one.
and
Yeah.
Mersbo one.
I'm
Yeah, the
looking
That's
Boris
for
and
the
pretty
Mersbo
bad
cool.
one.
Boris cover right now.
Yeah, No doesn't even look bad. I think No
No
is
is cool
fine.
too.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
all of them are really cool album covers. It's just like
Yeah.
I just like to see that they're continuing it. But
I love how we always bring up the album covers like
I
on
like
this
talking
show
about the
'cause
album covers because I feel like it's important, you know, to talk about the covers. Because I feel like
I think it's yeah, it's good to appreciate a good album cover because it does add to the sound sometimes, and I
it
think
adds
that
to the sound.
it
Like,
did. I think it represented the sound really well on this album. It just,
yeah, no, most
yeah,
definitely. And it's also like just a matter of like I think like an album cover is really gonna help me. Like, cause when I'm sitting there listening to it, I'm usually that's the only thing I'm gonna be looking at, the cover. And so I just let my mind wander in the cover that they've
yeah,
given us to kind of like have something, you know what I'm saying? And so that's why with some projects I don't connect nearly as much, but with others that have like really good covers, I can actually like kind of like gravitate more more towards them, you
yeah.
know what
I
I'm saying?
wonder how much subconsciously like that plays
Yeah,
into
and
people
that's like another thing to take into
It's
enjoying.
just a
consideration.
personal thing. Like for me, at least,
Yeah, it's a
like
person.
I kind of like to distance myself from the cover art. Like not completely,
Hmm.
but like I feel like that will kind of like cloud my judgment as a like in regards to the
Yeah,
music.
same.
Because I
Yeah,
feel like
if
a lot of people
well,
do that. Like you see a cool cover
I
and they're like, "Oh wow, that's so
I feel
awesome. I
like
want that in my top
if
suite."
it's a bad album cover, then I'll try to ignore it. But if it's a cool album cover, then
yeah,
I'll embrace
Yeah,
exactly.
it.
That's how I am. Like
Yeah,
it's well,
you can appreciate
album
it. It's
covers are
fine.
only
Yeah.
going to enhance it rather than like take
right.
away. Like yeah, I think it's only like a one-way street for me. But yeah, no, nonetheless, I think we should get into favorite tracks. I want to hear what your guys' biggest takeaways. So
Oh,
we'll give it to Alex. Give me your top three.
okay. So top three is Beyond Good and Evil, You Will
Mhm.
Know, and probably Isolina. That's how you pronounce it.
Icelina,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
great track. Vaughn, how about you?
Definitely the first track is my favorite, and beyond that, I'm pretty much taking. I like the Fallen and Drowning by Numbers. I guess yeah,
Okay.
they're pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I think I'm gonna take Icelina as my favorite song. Then I think I'm gonna take the opening track, the really long track. And then I'll probably take either Invitation or Drowning by Numbers. I think they're kind of like tied for me. But yeah, no, nonetheless, like I think a pretty good project, pretty good project. Perhaps anyone else you guys want to interject before we move on to our next project?
Just want to
Anything?
say that
Right.
like this album might be more ambient as I read like because it's
Mhm.
their debut on Sacred Bones, the record label.
Oh
So
yeah,
they're
I
known
read
Oh,
for
that.
more like
I didn't even
close to our
consider that.
ambient
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So I feel like that makes sense in
Maybe
context of
maybe
like
this is
their
the
label.
start of a whole new like Boris era.
Yeah.
So
Well,
But they like doing
hopefully,
releases
cause
under multiple like things, so
yeah,
definitely on
hopefully,
the
cause
record
Sacred
label.
Bones kind of gave us spelling last year, and that was
Yeah, one of your favorites, right?
Eesh.
yeah,
Yeah. So
no,
let's
that
hope
was in your top five of the year.
Yeah.
that's true. It wasn't my top five of the
Yeah,
year,
it was. Yeah, it
but like
was.
reverse, like bottom five,
Oh well,
and not
I
five,
don't
four,
think that's
three, or
true.
two. So
You're
I
like
don't think that's true.
the evil Anthony
yeah,
Fantano, like
yeah, I'm evil Anthony.
It's
Yeah,
evil
evil Anthony be
evil
like
Anthony.
this album sucks. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. We're not gonna talk about Fantano. I don't want to.
Let's gonna
I'm
move
not.
on.
Let's get to move on.
Let's gonna
Um,
move on.
let's actually
Oh
open up
no.
into our Twitter picked album. Thank you
What picked album?
to
Hey,
Jack.
Twitter pick album.
To Jack.
Jack
Well,
Takes.
we got it. Jack takes.
Jack
Jack
takes.
takes. We want to give you a big thank you. You. It was a close run. This week. It was between this album and Lil B's Blue Flame, which, who knows? We could maybe get it
That would
next
have been
week.
interesting to talk about, but I think this album
Yeah.
is more important in the
It's
grander
a lot more
scheme of
important, and that's
music,
going to
I would
be
say.
if you can see it right over there. It's going to be John Coltrane's
The Olatunji
Olatunji
Concert.
concert. Yes, the
John
last live
Coltrane.
recording.
The Olatunji Concert.
So actually, I think I kind of want to open up the floor and talk about it a little bit. I think for the most part, like this album is just awesome. It's crazy. My thoughts haven't really changed on it as to like upon re-listen because I do like listen to it a little bit every once in a while when I kind of want to like remind myself of like, hey, this is what free jazz is and free improvisation. Because for the most part, I'm not a big free jazz fan. Also, it's not free improvisation. My bad. I'm messing up the genres, ladies and gentlemen. It's not free improvisation according to this website I'm looking at. Um, but I won't say the website's name. I've been ridiculed for that.
Yes.
But
Okay.
and nonetheless, moving along. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm having a little bit of a slip up. Um, nah, I don't know. I think this album is so complex. Like complexity is at its peak here with free jazz, despite the fact that like when you read the genre like description of what free jazz is, it's like how could that really be complex? It should really more so just be like complete randomness. But like when you really listen to because like with this album, you could shift your ears every time you listen and focus only on the piano. You could focus only
Yes.
on the drumming. You could focus on the sax. Like you technically have like five different listens here to focus on because there's so much going on, and it's such a fun time that like I listened to this project two times in preparation for this video because it is kind of lengthy and it does kind of get a lot on you. It is kind of I wouldn't say grating is the word. But it's not grating, but for someone who may not be the biggest free jazz fan, because I'm a little bit more of a spiritual jazz, which they do kind of go, they have a synergy to them. But nonetheless, I just think this album is so cool in how much like I can't say the word layering because obviously that wasn't like a thing back then. I guess I don't know. I just think the idea of like how much stuff is going on in the opening track, the way it opens up with Coltrane just blowing on his sax, and just to also think that like this was the last thing he did, according I believe. Like this is just crazy. This what talk about a very high note to end off on. Quite both figuratively and literally ending on a high note. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Just the two tracks that we have here, Ogunde and My Favorite Things, are just both colossal titans of an album or of tracks that I really enjoy. So yeah, and also shout out Pharoah Saunders for being on this album on the tenor sax.
Yeah.
And just what a stacked
Great
lineup.
album.
Like you have Alice Coltrane on the piano. And you got some like Jimmy Garrison on bass and stuff like that. Like yeah, no, really stacked. Like those three together. I actually didn't know till afterwards that Pharoah was on this project. So really cool to say. But I'm gonna pass it on to anyone who wants to
Oh yeah.
interject.
Alex.
So
I'm
what
taking
I
up a little
wanted
bit
to say
too
was
much
that
now.
like when it comes to like jazz and shit, I'm not really good at talking about it, like specifics, because I
No,
don't really
nor
know
am I.
theory, and
Yeah,
like, neither do I
it's
really play, or do I
yeah.
understand like the whole history. But the thing is that the difference between like just playing randomly as like people would assume it to be, or when they first
Mhm.
hear it, and actual like free jazz and understanding your instrument and knowing that to the highest degree in the way that you can like break music completely and like basically all known like barriers through just maybe the purest form of jazz that I can think of, because like jazz has always been like improvisational art, and just like taking that to the whole extreme is like really mind blowing. And just that like I just want to set that difference between what people may like understand as like just messing around and doodling on your instrument and like making noise for no reason, and like understanding the sounds you make and really expressing yourself through a way that's very like freeform. And that like
Yeah.
goes on to the rest of the album, which is like a massive just mind fuck in general. What I want to say about the cast is I guess the band or whoever was like on it. I forgot the word for it,
Mhm.
but
The lineup.
yeah, the lineup, yeah.
The
Like Pharoah
lineup.
Sanders, like he really kicked it in like on this album, like on this like session, because like he's really like, or in general he's kind of like a very dominant player on like the whole soundstage, but when you really start to listen and pay close attention, like it's hard to ignore Pharaoh in
Yeah.
general, in my opinion. Like
Yeah,
he's like a
it's
really
it's
good
almost
player, and his
it's
like
almost hard
tone
to
is very
ignore
unique.
almost anyone on this project to say that because it's
Oh
like
yeah, definitely.
every like jazz is very much like I know the term that's coined a lot is like call and response. You know, there's a lot of call and
Yeah.
response in jazz. And like with this project, there is no calling and response. Everyone is doing their own thing. Like truly, I guess maybe if I were to actually like sit there and like I said, Alex said it perfectly. Like I don't think any three of us here have gone
No.
under the scope of jazz like and really studied the art behind it as much as some other people that we've talked with online. But like truly and honestly, it's just astonishing to listen to. Like it feels electrifying to listen to sit there and see all of these players playing in such a different manner, but also like somehow having a slight bit of unison almost like
Mm.
it does sometimes feel that like that oh Alice knew to like slow down here and then pick up here. Like I honestly love her contribution to the album the most, I'd say, other than Coltrane of course, because like her piano playing on here is just like so awesome and it caught me off guard on so many times and it's just so it's a very such a very interesting project. But yeah, Vaughn, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so I've listened to this album a lot, and
Mhm.
just over the past couple years, and it's always been an interesting album to me, and I think at first I didn't really understand it. I kind of like I always appreciated the album, but it took me a lot of listening. This is one of those albums that the more I listen, like every single time I get something new, and every single time I have a new appreciation for it. And I think I'm at the point now where I really like love this album, and it's just I, of course the performances and shit is just like stunning, and everything that you guys said I agree with, but I think my favorite part is just the sound of it. Like it's
Yeah.
so distorted and like kind of scary, and just like it's almost like a fucking harsh noise project at times. At
Yeah.
least the feeling you get.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more, there's more distinct sounds going on, of course, but it's really like the way that the bass and drums hit me, like just like physically, like in my headphones, dude. And the way that the sound recording is so inconsistent as well, because like there's a point like I think like 5 or 6 minutes in the first song where the audio just like completely fucking changes. Like I don't
Yeah.
even know.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but that's like one of my favorite parts. And I also love like the panning of the bass for just like a few minutes. It's just like in one ear, and then there's just like weird little things like that that I don't think were intentional, but they enhance it for me, because it's like it's taking the improvisational aspect and the unpredictable aspect of the album, like, and taking it up to a different level, because usually you don't hear just the sound quality and fidelity changing randomly in jazz albums. And
Yeah. It's just like an
um
inconsistency with the
yeah,
recording,
it's just
and
I just
how it
really
was
love
even
that
treated
type of
too.
shit. And I think
Yeah.
it's just a really like engaging, crazy album. It just sounds so cool.
Yeah, no, and it's just like the I love that idea of the sound because there's so much sound to have on this project. Like literally, I one listen I just focused on the drums and like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
dude is just sitting there like smacking his drums, not even with like his sticks. He's just like smacking it, and it's like
Rashid Ali,
I
that's
could not imagine what it would be like sitting in that room listening to that, like being there for that, like
I think the drums are my favorite part of this album, as far as like an instrument, picking an instrument, because
mhm.
they're just fucking so aggressive, like throughout the whole entire
yeah.
thing. And obviously they drop out for a while, but it makes it all the more powerful when they come back in.
Yeah,
And
no, most definitely.
yeah, it's crazy.
Because yeah, Rashid Ali, the drummer on that album, he's worked with Coltrane a few other times too, and he's like really
Mhm.
good. Like he's super aggressive, but the thing is that like he's so fast.
He's so fast, dude.
Yeah, it's been a while since I listened to like Interstellar Space and stuff, but just knowing like how he played on this album too, he's like a really good
And
player in general.
the thing you said about focusing on different instruments, I think that applies to like every album to an extent, but obviously jazz,
Jazz the
it
most, yeah.
applies to most jazz albums I've heard, and this is like the extreme of that because there's so much going on, and also I think just free jazz in general, and especially like Coltrane's free jazz, because Ascension is also like a similar album to this. Obviously, it's a lot clearer sound quality, and that's kind of what sets it apart for me. But this album is just like so much more intense.
Yeah,
Mm.
It's like
and exactly. Like I think
it's
it's.
kind of harder to hear the shit because of the sound quality.
Mhm.
It makes you pay attention more and pick up more, I think.
Yeah, no, it's honestly like it's almost like a disservice to have better sound quality when doing
Well,
something like this,
Mm,
yeah,
maybe, yeah.
like a free jazz,
I
because
wouldn't put it that way, but
Yeah.
I'm
well,
totally
I guess maybe not disservice is the term, but just nonetheless, I
it's
don't
just a
think.
different experience. It's a very
Yeah,
unique
it's a different
unique
experience
experience.
that may not be. Yeah, because that is a great like point about the whole just the idea of the sound quality just being so weird at times. Like literally the opening track, you can only hear in like your right ear. At least when I listen to it, I can only
The
hear it in my right
like the
ear.
introduction track is like really quiet too.
Yeah, the intro track, it's
Oh
really
yeah.
fucking
Like
quiet and
thirty
it's
Billy
second
only in your.
Taylor.
intro.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Billy Taylor.
Yeah, whenever
Yeah.
you say the
You
first track, I think about that song. That track,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know
Oh,
why.
okay,
That's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like there's a lot of albums like jazz albums that have like someone doing an introduction. Like Monin has one where like they literally just have a track for the members just warming up for a second.
Yeah, and I
And so
think a few
I don't ever
other
call that
markets
the
have
first
that
track. I
too.
just
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I
It's
call it the
that's
first
kind of
track because it's counted as a track. That's just me though. It's like
right,
Yeah.
you know,
right.
like
Yeah, no, for sure. But no, nonetheless, like everyone brought their A game for this project, and I honestly need to do a little bit more reading into like what went into the not only the making of this album, but I guess Coltrane's feelings, because I guess there's a lot more to it context wise, other than the fact that just like this was his last performance. Like there's more to it supposedly, and I just haven't gone that far because I don't know why for some reason like don't get me wrong, Coltrane is an absolute goat, but there's just other artists that I focus on a little bit more as far as when it comes to like jazz. Like just for instance, Pharoah Saunders, I love a lot more than Coltrane, and that isn't to take away from Coltrane. It's just that like um I don't know. I
Just
it's
sound appeals to you more.
yeah. I just think that Pharoah. I love
That's fair.
the way Pharaoh plays. I love like the journeys he takes you on a little bit more than a Coltrane would. But I think when it like comes down to it, like I definitely think Coltrane was like the best player nonetheless. Like the shit that he pulls off on this project alone
yeah.
is just insane. Not even to bring up your Love Supreme, your Blue Trains, your My Favorite Things and shit
Yeah.
like that. Because like those projects are also just beasts. Like this is the guy, the jazz guy. And
Yeah,
I
for
wish
sure.
jazz wasn't as underappreciated in the grand scheme of things, in like today's society in like America, because
Yeah.
jazz is just kind of seen as that like
It's unfortunate that people like know three names. Like two names and like three if you're
yeah
lucky.
they,
Like you know
yeah
like
Yeah,
the,
Miles
and there
Davis,
aren't even like,
Kenny G,
the very respected
yeah
ones. They might just be some
maybe John
modern like
Coltrane.
some
yeah
modern
maybe a
white
John
guys.
Coltrane.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might
Yeah.
say like a Louis Armstrong or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like
Yeah,
that.
Louis
Yeah.
Yeah,
Armstrong.
it's
Oh,
just
they're gonna say fucking Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
They're gonna say
Yeah,
Sinatra.
no, and I just yeah, because like when you look at it, like jazz just seems like one of those like artists that only your grandpa and grandma would talk about. One of those like shelf artists or shelf
Yeah,
genres that
well,
just like
not even that. Like you have to be in the specific niche. Like it's not even like a cultural thing where like if you were alive this time, you probably like it's
Yeah.
like
yeah,
I just think
it's more specific than that.
in
Yeah.
kind of like
yeah,
oh well, all right, we're gonna go more to like societal talk, but in like a very like sparse attention economy where like everything's like kind of biting at you all at the same time for your attention and
Yeah.
your
mm,
like especially social media, etc., and like
Yeah.
short
It's hard to
form
enjoy
music and
jazz.
stuff. Yeah, you have to be more present to really enjoy like genres like jazz and like maybe a bit more like maybe more technical genres. So that's why I feel like a lot of people can't really like get into jazz because
Definitely.
they don't really see like music as necessarily like something that you're supposed to dive into, but rather something that is a service to you, you know,
yeah.
which is
No,
just
and
how a lot of
I
people
think
see it.
I
It's
think
fine, but like,
that yeah,
yeah,
that kind of thought process is heightened on like free jazz because there is a big disconnect with people who like jazz and then free jazz, because there will be just some people who don't get it. And it's super polarizing to think, holy shit, there were like real like this is a real thing, a very real and present movement at the time, at in this stage of our lives, that like I just wish was like I would so love to be in like a music class that like teaches you about like the jazz movement and shit like
Yeah.
this, because you have to do a lot of seeking out for yourself, and there's sadly not a lot of video essays on like free jazz, because I'd sit there and watch a whole documentary on free jazz. And I know that there is a John Coltrane documentary, and they might touch on this on this kind of project. I still have to watch it, but like this is just something that I want to learn more about. Like free jazz is so interesting. Just the idea of wanting to break down the conventions of a genre that's already known for just like trying to challenge the status quo is just
Yeah.
so interesting.
I
Um,
I also kind of relate to that, not really wanting to sit down and like take. I don't want to always. This is a hard album to listen to because I'm not always in the mood
yeah,
for this. And this is like one of the free jazz albums I actually kind of get, and I
yeah.
still listen to a lot of them, and I'm like this is not for me. I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? Like that's exactly how I am. Cause like
Yeah.
I like spiritual jazz, and that scene is like the sister to free jazz, because they're close. They have some synergy, but one's just a lot taller and a lot more, I guess, monstrous as comparative to spiritual jazz. And that's just the thing, that it's like you really need to be in the mood for this, and that's where I'm like, when I see like avant teens who listen
Oh
to the
man.
fuck out of free jazz, I'm like, bro, are you okay? Like,
Okay.
can you chill the fuck out? Go
I
listen to
mean,
some Blue Note like Miles Davis. Like, go listen to like fucking Kind of Blue and like chill the fuck out, because like I don't know how you could listen to this and Concert in Japan and like Ascension, like all of that shit, and like or like your Spiritual Unity. Like I just it's actually like mind blowing when I see people who absolutely like adore free
yeah,
jazz.
that's like the only jazz I listen to, and
I don't
Yeah,
know.
because
it's interesting.
I don't like how, like I don't
Because
know, like I'm not ripping on them,
yeah,
I'm not
I get
dissing them.
that.
It's just that I it's, if anything, it's just like major respect how that's the only jazz you want to listen
Like
to.
yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I feel like
C-
it's simply just because, in general, like people already know. Like, I've seen a bit of discourse about this. Like, people believe
mhm.
that like jazz can be very formulaic after a certain amount of time, or like a certain amount of like albums that they've heard. Because as someone who's like tried to dive into like more archival albums and like albums
Mhm.
that aren't really as known from artists like Blakey and other important like artists, like the playing is still good, but you get to a point where everything starts to kind of like sound very similar, and it's hard to take things apart without really going into like sort of um, the whole instrumentation and everything that's like becomes a little bit more difficult to really palette. So when it comes to free jazz is a lot more focused on thing, kind of breaking barriers, and it's like a lot more identifiable and also a lot more distinct than other types of jazz, even from like between albums in the same time period. And that's why I
yes.
feel like a lot of people like to listen to free jazz a lot, like in comparison to like regular jazz, especially with like avant teens who want to experience things that may be a little bit more like off the edge, you know? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
personally, like I can listen to Olatunji quite a lot if I want to. Like I can put in the background while I'm at like school or whatever, and I'll just be chill. That's
See,
just me
that's
though.
that's where I'm like I can't do that because it's
I could,
just too
yeah.
intense.
Like I'm
It's
like
too
I
heavy.
don't think I could bring my CD player into school and like sit
Because
there and listen
I
to
don't really
Olatunji.
get much out of it because there's not much like movement or like consistent movement, consistent structure.
Yeah.
So
Well, no.
I
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
like paying attention to it and tapped into it to like
Mm.
really enjoy it that much.
I don't know. Personally, I just like its presence, like the whole presence of the whole
I
like
can respect
crew
that.
being
Yeah.
there. It's very loud, and then if you want
Yeah,
to, you
yeah,
just
yeah.
focus in. Like sometimes you have like times of your day where you're like zoned out, but other times you're just like kind of more doing other things and walking around. And I'm fine with
Yeah.
like either when it comes to listening to free
I
jazz and
got you.
stuff.
Yeah, it's just personally I could not imagine like someone coming up to me and they're like, "Yo, what you listening to?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm bumping this Olatunji concert, or I'm bumping this Anthony
Olatunji.
Braxton, this four alto. You gotta listen to this shit." Because it's like I actually did a jazz presentation where I talked about free improvisation and free jazz, and I talked about Anthony Braxton, and I played like sound clips for the class because it was part of my presentation, and when I played like for alto, the entire class just like fucking lost it. They were like, "What the fuck?" Even my teacher was just sitting there like, "What in the world?" Like, because it's so polarizing to just even think that like this is what people were doing in like the 60s and 70s. I don't know. It's just I could not play this in a school setting. I can't lie. So
I
major
feel
respect to you. I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
I don't know. I feel like albums like Spiritual Unity might be a bit easier to listen to in school because it's a lot more structure based.
That
Just
yeah,
how
spiritual
Ayla
journey.
is,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But
definitely.
but but no, like I'll definitely sit there and be like, yeah, I'm listening to Karma, bro. Like I'm listening to some Pharaoh. Like this shit's crazy.
Yeah.
You gotta tap into this.
Yeah,
You know what
it's
I'm saying?
definitely different. It's definitely
Yeah,
Pharaoh's
it's
different.
definitely
been like
different.
ear candy. I love that guy.
Yeah, Pharaoh is definitely just awesome. But okay, let's get into. We can't even do favorite tracks
Oh
because
yeah, right.
there's dead ass
I
three.
will
Tracks. Let's hear
say
Top
I
3
So
by Billy
actually
Taylor.
I know most people probably like my favorite things more. I like Ogundi more.
yeah,
It
I like a
It's
feels
Gunday
like
more.
more
better, but
brutal and it's like
Hmm.
intense than
it
having
Yeah,
like
no,
was.
I'm
that.
actually yeah,
That
I'm
was
with
my
you
favorite thing.
100% Vaughn. So favorite track. So me and Vaughn we're both picking a Gunday,
It's
and then
Favorite things.
Alex.
That bass intro, so good,
yeah, yeah,
so fucking good.
I get it.
You can't
Yeah,
replace that.
no, that's definitely it's valid because this entire project is just. I mean, it is just a live project.
And
So
also, it's like it's it's basically two sides to an hour long performance. So I mean,
true.
it's not
Yeah.
really like it's not. There's so much going on in both that it's kind of unfair to just pick one and say like this is way better than the other one.
Yeah,
So
and a great person once said, about jazz and the idea of like you have to like really invest. I remember they said, in order to listen to jazz, you got to give up some scrabbles. And I think with this
Facts.
that's I don't
project,
think that's the right quote,
with
but
That's
it's
with
facts.
like
this
That's facts
project,
though.
you gotta give up some
you
scrabbles in
gotta
order to
sacrifice some scrabbles
you gotta
for a little
sacrifice some
fun.
scrabbles in order to enjoy
Sacrifice some
some
scrabbles for a little
Sacrificing
fun.
some
That's
for
what. Yeah.
scrabbles.
for yeah, sacrifice some scrabbles for a little fun when it comes to jazz. And I'm willing to put down the scrabbles. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if I only got 50 scrabbles for the week if it means I gotta listen to, you know. It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess that is your warning if you're gonna jump into free jazz. You're gonna be giving up your scrabbles. So whether that where place your priorities where you will. Place your priorities where you will.
Mm.
But speaking of actually, some a little bit more fun. Speaking of some fun, why don't we go into our classic album picked by none other than our guest, Alex. And he's actually gonna have to give some context, so I'm gonna give him the floor once I introduce the album as to why this is a classic. Because I am uneducated and uncultured in this artist, and I actually got quite a bit to say. But yes, the artist we're going to be discussing this week is Yellow Magic Orchestra's self-titled Yellow Magic Orchestra. Not the remixes, regular version.
Well, they're both kind of the same record in the way that basically all the arrangement is the same, except for the fact that the Japanese version, the one that we're gonna primarily be talking about today, has an extra track at the end. In my opinion, I
Okay.
like the USA version a bit more, just because it's a bit more brighter, a bit more like poppy, in my opinion.
I did not listen to the U.S. version, so
What do you mean? Did you listen to the one with the lady on it or the?
no, the other one.
I listened to the one with
Yeah, that's the
cigarette
one I
burns
listened to.
yeah, for this week.
Yeah, I didn't listen to the lady one.
Okay,
No,
that's the
I
one
didn't
you
listen to
have
the lady one
thing.
either.
Yeah, it's one that you have cataloged, Anthony. The one
Okay,
with the
I'm
lady.
gonna have to
Okay.
listen to that.
Yeah.
But
So then let's
Yeah,
get
the
into it.
reason why it's kind of
Alex.
like the reason why it's kind of like a classic is simply because of their revolutionary use of like synthesizers. I cannot say that word.
It is kind
And
of
like
hard word to say.
electronic instruments in a kind of more pop setting as opposed to something that's like a bit more experimental or maybe ambient. So it's really brought like electronic to the mainstream, especially in Japan, and also it happens to be one of the main records that like really revolutionized that whole era of synth pop alongside like Kraftwerk, and later on they'll be joined by bands like that you may know like New Order and Depeche Mode, etc.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
obviously really important
yeah.
in terms of just like
Patch mode.
exploring like electronic.
Yeah. Okay, that's definitely fair. But actually getting into your thoughts on the album.
Oh,
What
my
are they?
thoughts. Okay, I'll
Yeah, your
explain
thoughts
why as a
other than
coffee.
yeah, because I need you to give
Okay.
me a little bit of context, and then you can start talking about your thoughts.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Well,
So in
that
my
was kind
opinion,
of
like,
context, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
alright,
was. That's
yeah,
what I'm
the
saying.
history
He
Okay,
gave
behind
okay, yeah.
yeah,
context.
the history behind Yellow Magic Orchestra is that it's just supposed to be like a session band made by Harumi Hosono, which is a
Hmm.
bassist and he does like electronics too. They all do electronics
Okay.
with thing Ryuichi Sakamoto and Yukihiro Takahashi as sort of like a parody or a play on the whole kind of exoticism of like Japanese culture at the time because it's like post World War II, kind of early pre-internet. So you can see it kind of especially on like not EPs like what's it called again? Multiples, where they have skits where they kind of parody the American view of like Japanese people in specific. So that's why the band is called Yellow Magic Orchestra, because black magic was kind of like a trend or whatever in Japan, or like a lot of people were talking about it. So they decided to name themselves Yellow Magic Orchestra.
See, I didn't know any of this. Like, actually, some
I
parts of the
didn't know
album are
either.
making more sense to me now
Yeah,
that
and
I'm
that's
hearing
why
it.
it sounds a lot more exotic. They kind of dropped that like sort of motif later on with albums like Technodelic, etc. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's really like inspired by the kind of I don't know how to describe it, but more ethnic sounds, which are explored on later like Yellow Magic Orchestra solo albums, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I kind
so
of.
I definitely I hear those kind of those sounds like in familiar melodies and stuff throughout a lot of this album. And just to kind of get into my thoughts, I really have like fallen in love with this album. It's so good. It's so fun. It's like I love how it takes these familiar melodies and kind of like childlike sounds and video game sounds and it just like it all puts it into this really fun like kind of nostalgia trip kind of just it's just a really fun like good sounding album. Everything sounds so good, like so clear, so crisp, like the sounds, the instruments. I love the drums. Like the drums just have like a really good like
Mm.
crack to them. Like everything just sounds really good. And it definitely takes that those familiar kind of motifs and kind of spins them and like and twists and turns them in a way that you don't exactly expect. And it's just makes for like a really kind of nostalgic and fun and kind of like takes you back to to some childlike feelings when you're listening to this and that's I really love it. I'm really like it's just a really fun, happy album.
Yeah, I feel like it's like really whimsical and like very tongue in cheek
Yeah,
in that way. That's what
whimsical.
really like made me enjoy it. Really fun.
I yeah. So I gotta preface.
Oh no.
Someone recommended me Yellow Magic Orchestra. I think like 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years because I was in engineering at one point. And I was like, when I first listened to it, I listened to the version with like a lady on it, and I was like, this is some ass trash. Like,
Um,
I was like, I did not like this at all. It sounded so. It didn't appeal to me at all. And I think that's because at that point in time, I was like really just trying to find like the ominous and the creepy and the bizarre and the fucking weird. And this was not that. You know what I'm saying? Because this is not that. This is very goofy and very silly and bright and fun. But fast forward to now and me listening to it, and this album is just fun. I like it. I like it a lot.
There you go.
I think it's got some really cool shit on it. I still have not listened to the version with the lady on it. I listened to the one with like the
Cigarette
cigarettes and
butts
the
and the
yeah,
clock and
yeah,
the
everything,
this
right?
is
clock.
the
Yeah,
other
I
one
don't know
wasn't
what
even
it
on
is.
Apple Music, so I
Okay.
couldn't.
Yeah, because I listened to that one and I was just like, nah. But this version I like a lot. The track Firecracker I have heard somewhere before.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think
Right, yeah.
Firecracker is yeah, the most famous song in at least in the US because it actually made its
yeah,
way over and a lot of like people who liked hip hop and stuff decided to listen to it. And
I
Yellow
don't know
Magic
where
Orchestra
where I've
has
heard it
some
though.
thing. Oh, they put on Soul Train. So, I'll tell you that much. They were on Soul Train.
What is Soul Train?
Wow,
You don't know Soul Train?
that's I it's
I'm
like
just I'm
a
just
It's
blanking
like a
like
right now.
show.
a music type of show, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
okay.
a children's show kind of.
You know
Got
that
you.
It's been
Walk It
Because
Like
around
I
for a
Talk It
while.
music video by the Migos?
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a yeah, that takes
Oh,
reference to
that's
Soul Train.
Soul Train.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Soul
yeah,
Train.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, because it was a matter of like I could have sworn we were watching like a fashion show and it was in it because I remember
Oh
you
yeah,
telling me
yeah. We're
about that.
watching the Junya Watanabe thing. I think a song Spring
Was the
Breakers
song
too.
in there?
It was the second one, and the first one is
There you
like
go.
a remix, or not really remix, but a new arrangement for Tong Pu, which is later on the album by Sakama
Yeah,
for piano.
because I was like, bro, I was sitting there the entire time through Firecracker, like I've heard this somewhere, where have I heard it? But like,
Well,
yeah, it's
that's the idea I was talking about, where it's a familiar melody. It feels like an iconic melody or something,
Yeah,
like
it's like
from
an
like your
earworm. Yeah,
childhood, and it just kind of takes you
yeah.
back.
whole
No, but
album's
like
full of earworms.
I think definitely this album is just so vibrant and it's just got such a range to it that I love it. Yeah, because I think I will say that. I think I will say gladly say that I love this project. I think it's got a lot of really cool shit on it, and I think it's interesting. Like I know Alex, you were
I have
probably
nothing
like,
to hold over Anthony's head anymore.
bro, you were like, no, because I remember you were like, bro, you just need to re-listen. You'll probably like it now, and I was like, yeah, probably so, but like, you know, but man, I don't know what I was thinking back then. I guess it really was just like I was just trying to look for deep, dark, creepy shit, and this was not it.
Now we need you to
Um,
re-listen to Amine. We need to get rid of those .5s. No more .5s, bro. No more .5s.
Alex is like the biggest Amine fan.
yeah, Alex is a big
I'm the
Amina fan.
biggest
I
Amine
don't know
fan.
about
I
that
respect
because
it. I respect it.
I listened to the project from last year, and I wanted to like.
No, you did not. You had a review up on Instagram, and it was
Oh,
positive.
what's it called, Limbo?
Yeah,
I
Limbo.
Yeah,
like that.
Limbo. My Limbo review on Spike Draft. I've since archived
I
that
love
page,
Limbo.
but
Limbo is amazing.
no, we're not gonna get into the Alex taste. We're gonna talk about Yellow Magic Orchestra. Nah, this album is just really goofy. I think it's honestly just so like it has such a charm to
Yes.
it.
Mm.
The the only thing that I think holds it back for me, which I think you guys will instantly disagree, is that it kind of it's very 80s. It's very 80s. Um,
Well,
Well, it was made in 1978, so it
I
made
meant
the
I'm
80s.
my bad. I meant to say it just
well, no,
it
it is pretty
It is
80s.
kind of
it does
80s.
I hear
sound
it.
very 80s.
I can
Um,
hear it,
Yeah,
but
because
that's
that's when like
really
kind of electronic started to like
yeah,
they're like
I
one of the
love the
pioneers.
sound of the
So yeah,
80s.
it takes it away
So
from me personally because I'm not that big on it.
I
I
love the
love it.
80s
I
sounds like
think
the
it just
80s.
adds character to the album, and I don't think it's exactly like it's definitely a distinct sound amongst other 80s albums. It's
Yeah,
not like
exactly. Especially in like arrangement
it's
and such.
definitely not a stereotypical album, not like a it's like very distinct, it's very
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah,
But
most definitely. It's just that like it does sound very 80s to me, and it's just like that kind of holds me back because I don't know. It's kind of I don't want to say the word cheesy because that has a negative connotation to it, but it does have a good amount of cheese to it.
it is
Like
cheesy, and
I
that's
feel like
really
yeah,
what I
it's a
love
bit of
about
the
it.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they want
yeah,
to be cheesy on purpose, right?
But I can definitely understand how that would take
I'm
away
kind of
from
just
it.
not
I
here
kind
for it.
of
Listen to some Dua Lipa and come
I
back.
was the same way with like Caro Caro Bonito when I first heard them. Like I was like, oh, this is like children's music. Like how can I can't listen to this. It took me a little bit to kind of get into it. So I kind of understand that there's definitely a lot of music like that where it's just like it's very cheesy, very childlike, and I think with this album though, once you embrace that, it's like the best, its strongest asset, I
Yeah,
think.
and even when I did embrace it, it's still just a matter of like I don't know. I think I don't know. It just it aged most definitely not poorly. That it just aged. You know what I'm saying? Um, and
I think
the,
actually it's kind of ahead of its time in a way
Oh, it's
because
definitely
I
ahead of
feel
its
like
time. Yeah.
I mean, well,
yeah,
yeah, but especially with like the video game sound effects, because I was like, dude, this is like some Game Boy shit or something, or like NES, and then it actually came out before a lot of that shit. So I don't know. It reminded me a lot of like some video game soundtracks that I love,
yeah.
maybe some like Pokemon soundtracks and like some old Zelda, and
But actually, yeah, no, and I
it
do agree
like
with that.
predates all of that. So it's
Yeah, I
I was like,
actually do really like the vocals on this project, which is something that like I thought I wouldn't like half as much. But
yeah.
no, the vocals are cool. Like on
Yeah, there aren't too many vocals, but I think when they come in, it fits. Like it's really
yeah,
good.
it definitely does. Like on La Femme Chinoise. I don't know how to
Yeah,
say
La
it.
Yeah,
Femme,
love that shit.
La
whatever.
Femme Chinoise, I guess. That track is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, nonetheless, like I think that's really just the thing that's holding me back from like being like this is so awesome. I need to embrace everything about this and love it. It's just that I don't know. It definitely just because something aged does not mean that it wasn't ahead of its time when it came out. It's just
Right.
that
Yeah.
like we've
Yeah.
moved so far because like yeah, you're right. Like this does predate a lot of heavy like big electronic
Well, it still
albums.
is like a pop album, you know. So
Yeah,
it
Yes.
still has
yeah,
that appeal, and
yeah,
yeah, especially for the time period, which
yeah,
makes
most
sense.
definitely. But no, nonetheless, like still like I got to give it to the project. It's still really fun. It's still really cool. And like I said, it just feels like so like goofy. Like I don't know, it just makes me think of like a Jack in the Box and like you know that dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun
Like
dun, and then just
I
I
feel
don't know,
you.
it's just it's goofy. It's goofy and I like it. I like goofy stuff now. You know, I can gladly like put on my clown shoes, you know, and then just kind of like dance around a little bit. And
Mm.
I like this project.
So I wanted
But
to
yeah,
say
no.
something about kind of the whole video game type of music thing you're
Mhm.
talking about. So video game music was kind of like very rudimentary and archaic at the time. It's just very beep 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 beep
Yeah.
beep and that stuff. But Yellow Magic Orchestra inspired a few video game composers, which have done music for Ridge Racer and Street Fighter and Tekken, to make their own type of group as a parody called Oriental Magic Yellow, and they came out like 10 years later than Yellow Magic Orchestra. So
Wow.
it's like, so literally all their album covers are like parodies of Yellow Magic Orchestra,
Wow.
and also in one of their albums, and it's basically just a ton of parody songs. So you can kind of like
That's
tell
interesting.
that Yellow Magic Orchestra kind of influenced the whole video game music and like digital music type of scene too in
Wow.
Japan. That's just a
That's
cool thing I
that's
wanted to
Um.
say. Yeah.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I actually didn't know
I
that.
feel like what I was my I think my main like kind of takeaway when I was listening to this is kind of like to put it in just like a sentence or two like it's like video game music upscaled to like cleaner, crisper, the real instruments and stuff and synths and like it's like video game music of the 80s
Mm-hmm.
upscaled basically. And I really love the sound of the instruments on this album, and it really kind of like it takes these melodies that are kind of basic but very catchy, a lot like video game music, and it incorporates the video game sounds, but it also has really clean instrumentation and really cool instrumentation like the drumming and the bass is just like on point throughout the album. And I think that's really what elevates it for me is just like I just love the sound of everything. I
Yeah.
love the 80s sounds and stuff and like it just really appeals to me. Just everything about this album.
It's just a thing about kind of more catchy jingles that loop after a few bars. That's like a really video game thing, and to see that in the
Yeah.
album was like really fun. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really cool thing. Just like kind of catches on this earworm. Everything on that album's like an earworm.
So anything else to say,
Which was
Anthony?
spiked.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not gonna lie. I still am like I get the hype now a little bit, but I'm still not really enthralled by them, so I don't have much to say other than like it's really
Damn.
cool. I'm giving it
Okay.
two thumbs up, and
Okay.
I'm ready to move on to favorite tracks. Wrap up.
Okay.
So let's drop our favorite tracks. Let's give it to Alex. Give me your top three.
Okay. So my favorite, just like one of my favorite songs ever, is like Simoon, track 3.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. It's the one about the desert and stuff. It's really
I
cool.
love when
One of the
like
only songs with
those
like
vocals
lyrics.
come in
Yeah.
like a couple minutes in. It's so good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then after next is Tongpu. So, dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And then my third favorite would just be it's hard. I guess I'll say like Firecracker. That makes sense for him. Yeah.
I think I have the same top three actually. Probably I'll probably put Firecracker first, but yeah,
Mm.
amazing song.
I think I'm gonna take Firecracker as my favorite. Then I'm gonna take La Femme Chinoise. Chinoise? I don't know how to say
It's
it.
like French. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think I'm gonna take Mad Piert. Mad Piert.
Okay. Okay.
I like that track. I like that track a lot. I
Here,
think
yeah.
that's gonna be my top three.
All right.
But any last thoughts you want to leave, Alex? Maybe. Hey, is there anything you want to plug? Perhaps. We kind of forget to ask that. I can't lie.
I don't
Uh,
think I don't think most of our guests have had things to plug.
You never know. We're gonna offer it to
But I mean,
Alex.
you're right. Yeah.
If you have
Alex, is there
any
anything you want to
job
plug?
offers available, and that could be remote or in the Greater Toronto area, I'm looking for a job. I can do manual labor. I can work from 3 to 10 on weekdays, and on weekends I'm fine for any shift. But
Okay.
also, I want to plug my rateyourmusic.com, so in the description, check that out.
This is
Okay,
why
yeah,
we don't ask. This is why we
yeah.
don't
This is why we don't ask. We're
Okay.
not allowing the plugging.
This
But
this kid said, "Send me job
pl-
offers, bro."
send me job, bro.
Job
This is
offers.
not Indeed.com. Like I get it. I'm in a suit right now, but like, come on now. But all right,
Oh God, imagine you sit down for a job interview and it's Anthony at the other desk, bro.
bro. Wait, like what? I'm the interviewer or
Yeah,
the
that would be-
interviewee?
You're the interviewer.
Bro,
I'd
come
fall
on.
apart,
Like,
bro.
you know what's crazy? One time I applied to go to Publix, and they were like, okay, so what are your hours going to be? I was like, oh, I'm available anytime. And I was like, and then immediately after I was like, wait, no, I'm not. I actually have school. They just looked at me like, you're not, your ass is not getting hired. Like, they were like,
Not
your
at
fucking
this
dumb
level.
ass is
Slipped
not
up.
getting hired. And guess what? Guess what? I didn't get hired. So
You didn't
yeah.
get hired.
Nonetheless,
Oh.
I thought I had a little bit of charm, but I kind of fucked up there. But all right. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for coming out to this episode of the Cherry Guys podcast. Want to give a big shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, or not even the myth. He's a legend. He's just the
He is
man, the
kind of a
legend.
myth. He's a little bit of a myth.
He's a little bit of a myth in
Let's be
how he's
real.
mysterious. Yeah, we can be real. Todd Edwards. We want to give a big shout out to
Shout out
Todd
to Todd.
Edwards. We love you. He's a goat. We want to give a big shout out to Dr. Fauci. He helped push the vaccines. We rock with him.
Oh,
Oh, Alex, have you gotten recently vaccinated?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Booster,
Canadian.
perhaps?
I don't.
no.
What does being Canadian have to do with anything?
Fauci has no influence over my life.
That's
Cap.
sad.
That's
That's
cap.
That's
That's
cap.
just cap.
Fauci is everywhere in
Fauci-
our hearts.
Is everywhere.
Uh-oh.
Everywhere is Fauci.
Uh
Oh.
oh. My
My
camera went
camera
out for a
froze?
second. I don't know why,
Oh,
but we're gonna wrap
okay.
up. We're gonna wrap up here. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to give a big shout out to Todd Edwards. We love you so much. Big shout out to Alex. Big shout out to Vaughn. I've been Anthony, and we'll see you next time with a big special guest. So get hyped. This
Remember
was
to vote
yeah.
for the
Remember to
album on
vote.
Twitter.
Please
And
vote.
yes,
Vote
we
for
have
me
a
on
very
Twitter.
special
I
guest.
am Javiki Chu on Twitter.
Yes,
Vote for my
Javiki Chu
album.
on Twitter.
His
But
ad
yes.
will be on screen.
That will be on screen. Okay.
No,
Big
it
shout
was
outs.
already on screen. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. All right.
Nope.
Much love. We'll see y'all later. Bye bye.